Welcome to ISUOG's second Facebook Live session, Ask Us Anything, where we'll be answering your questions about the ISUOG Virtual World Congress. I'm Zarka, the events coordinator here at ISUOG, and I'm joined by two members of our scientific committee, Dr. Helen Feltovich and Dr. Surgeon Sasso. Now, Helen's clinical appointment is with Intermountain Healthcare in Salt Lake City in Utah. She also conducts research on developing ultrasound technologies and preterm birth in developing and developed areas. And Surgeon is based at the Faculty of Medicine, Department of Metabolism, Digestion and Reproduction at Imperial College in London. He also works at Queen Charlotte's Hospital and the Department of Gynecological Oncology. And his main interest lies in gynecological surgery with a particular focus on fertility sparring surgery. So as I mentioned earlier, we're here to talk about our first virtual congress and the scientific program ahead of our early bird deadline, which is on the 17th of August. We'll be starting by asking both Surgeon and Helen questions about the program and then move on to more technical questions about the practicalities of a virtual congress. Now, don't forget, you can still submit your own questions via the comment section below, and we shall try and answer these at the end of our session. Before we start, we'll have a bit of a warm up with Helen and Surgeon. How are you both and how have your weeks been? Helen, do you want to start?
Oh, thank you so much. My week has been just fine. Exhausting as usual, trying to figure out this pandemic, which seems to change every day, but I've been looking forward all week to this Facebook Live to talk about the future and imaging science and all the cool.
I think we may have lost Helen briefly. We'll go over to Surgeon. How's your week been?
Hello everyone, welcome from sunny London. It's 36 degrees here, so we're all sweltering, especially me in this tie. I've had a great week, very much looking forward to the next 30 minutes and highlighting everything that's going to happen in October at our first virtual ISUOG World Congress.
I'm based in London as well, so I can attest to it being a scorcher today. Walking to the office to set up for this this Facebook Live. It wasn't an enjoyable walk. It wasn't. I felt the sweat dripping down my back. We'll start by hearing from you both about the main themes about the scientific program. Helen, do you want to tell us what the main themes for obstetrics will be?
Sure. Well, we're going to be reviewing, as always, there's a mix between fundamentals and emerging science in all of the main areas. So for instance, we'll have sessions on the fetal heart and the fetal CNS system. We'll review growth restriction, Doppler, maternal medical conditions like preeclampsia, all the usual things we'll review. We have a special session this year on using imaging on the labor ward, which I think will be really exciting. And we'll, of course, review first trimester anatomy and approaches for screening. And this year, of course, there will be work and an entire session on the pandemic and what it's taught us and what we can learn about it through imaging and information about how to take care of our patients. And of course, always my favorite, the emerging technology and machine learning artificial intelligence session. So we'll have the usual wonderful mix that we always have of fundamental education and cutting edge science in lots of areas across the spectrum.
And you also mentioned which you're most looking forward to. And I'm just going to say a little disclaimer. You have inside knowledge, which is why you're able to say, which is probably the one you're most looking forward to out of the topics. Surgeon, what about you? What themes can you look forward to for gynecology?
Well, we'll have the general themes that we always have. So we have a section on ovarian masses and all the work that's come from the International Ovarian Tumor Analysis Group. We have a section on the implications and the use of ultrasound in oncology, a section on early pregnancy, and then two benign sessions, fertility and obviously pelvic pain and endometriosis. We also have a couple of cool and funky new special workshops, one on Asherman's syndrome and one on recurrent miscarriage. So a lot to get through and a lot to learn from, a little bit of old stuff and some new concepts to introduce into this year's program.
Absolutely. And Helen, who should be attending our Congress? Who will our program be the most relevant to?
You know, that's a hard question because honestly, everyone. Obviously, obstetricians, gynecologists, sonologists and sonographers, members of industry that work with imaging and biomarkers for prediction. I also think that this is a very useful Congress for people who are in the technical side of imaging science, engineers, physicists. And one thing that's really great about the virtual Congress this year, that one tiny gift the pandemic has given us, is that because we're virtual, a whole bunch of people that previously have not been able to take out the time or, you know, spend the time and the travel resources to go to a meeting will be able to attend because it's virtual. So I even think it's great information for trainees and medical students and medical trainees of all kinds. I mean, honestly, everyone. I'm going to make my husband go to it. And he's a stay-at-home dad, but it really is sort of that interesting and has that wide appeal for everyone. And because it's virtual this year, we can make that happen.
Exactly, you're right. It's so much more accessible. People who probably, you're right, who probably didn't get to go previously have more opportunities thanks to our reduced fees. Thanks to our reduced fees for the Congress, and with the platform being open for 30 days after the Congress, any sessions which are missed by our delegates, they can just go in, rewatch some of the content, and so they can rewatch some of the content and see any sessions that they missed. You mentioned about trainee reps, about it being great for trainee reps. Now, Surgeon, you're our trainee rep on the scientific committee. What will our trainees get out of attending?
Well, again, a very good question, and so much you can say. I was a trainee when I attended my first ISWOG. This was in Montreal in 2015. The things that grabbed me, first of all, it's always number one, an educational conference. You have invited speakers that give talks and also that teach practical lectures. In addition to that, you have some workshops and masterclasses that specifically cater to this. There's a strong academic presence with leaders, or world leaders that are presenting their work. So opportunities for trainees to find out what's going on in the world, to see how they can improve their academic profile. And one of the main things that grabbed me, the translational element of all this. It's not just a conference about ultrasound. It's a conference which looks at the cross-fertilization between ultrasound and industry, ultrasound and other topics, whether it's clinical laboratory work, whether it's biomedical engineering, whether it's artificial intelligence, and so on. So I definitely like that last point. Also, it's a good time to announce that we've created a new group. This is the next generation group, or the NGen group, looking to bridge the gap between senior management of ISWOG and the new trainees that are coming through. So please keep a lookout. There will be some specific sessions that have been organized by trainees for trainees.
Yeah, and some of the things that you mentioned would also be relevant to anyone who's not a trainee. Are there any other aspects that you think, if you're not a trainee, would be a great highlight for them?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have new research findings, new technologies and techniques that are progressing ultrasound in the world sphere. So delegates that are not trainees will be able to apply their learning to adopt the best practices in their clinical work, and also go back to their own units and able to share their thoughts and work as to how they can improve their departments as well as their team. And finally, that concept of cross-fertilization. A lot of non-trainees look to expand their clinical and academic work into other fields, and this is a good opportunity. I think ISWOG is absolutely brilliant at that.
You sound like one of our ISWOG cheerleaders.
I definitely am.
And we have many Congress attendees that attend our events, and we have some regulars, so they're probably aware of what our programs, the different sessions that make up our program. Helen, can you highlight the different types of sessions for anyone who is new to the ISWOG community and our Congress?
Absolutely, and I just want to focus on that word cross-fertilization for a moment too, because ISWOG, the reason that it's one of my favorite little professional homes in the whole world is that it really is brilliant at cross-fertilization, especially as we move into this world where imaging biomarkers and serum biomarkers and demographics and all that, we're understanding more and more how all of those things play together. So to Sertan's point, the cross-pollination that's available through the virtual Congress is going to be amazing. And we always have great keynote speakers and special lectures. This is where the floor is given to key leaders who speak on hot topics. And I think we'll hear a couple of those in a few minutes. We also have workshops, and this is where we explore topics in depth. And we have a panel of international experts that work together. A feature of many of the workshops is a live scan demonstration, which we're able to do virtually this year also. Masterclasses focus on a select few of world-renowned leaders and clinicians to speak within their areas of expertise, and we have oral communication sessions that let us feature top abstracts and cutting-edge topics in all of the different areas that we're coming. And then we always have interactive hubs, and usually at the in-person congresses, this is where many people gather together in a physical space. This year, there will be even more opportunity because those spaces are kind of limited. This year, there will be wide opportunity for communication within these pubs. They're interactive sessions and they're informal, and they cover topics, anything from gynecology to and infertility, all the way to very detailed specific things like speckle tracking of the fetal heart. So there's an ability there to interact with experts in the field, and also we'll have poster sessions in there. So there'll be tons of opportunity for interaction through all of our featured presentations.
You mentioned hot topics. Now we have a host of very exciting speakers. Sertan, are you able to spill the beans on some of the plenary sessions that our delegates can look forward to?
Yes, of course. Well, I have a list here, but obviously there will be some others that will be added to the program. We'll have obviously Professor Stuart Campbell, who's the founding president of ISWOG, who will be giving us a lovely run through of the history of ultrasound, starting from the work of Professor Ian Donald, who is the founder of ultrasound within obstetrics. After that, we'll have Professor Tom Bourne from Imperial, who will be talking about his work relevant to burnout and well-being. We know that the high levels of burnout were observed in obstetrician gynecologists, and particularly among trainees. This can be associated with increased defensive medical practice, and it can also be worse for doctor well-being. And as a result, he's going to look at some ways in which we can help to inform the content of future interventions aimed at preventing burnout. Professor Christine Mummery will look at the implications of stem cells, how they impact new drugs, and how relevant that is to our patients. We'll have Laura Riley, who will be looking at the racial and ethnic disparities in maternal morbidity and mortality. A very timely lecture at this point, with definitive studies and conclusions required. What causes this? Is it difference in comorbidities between groups? Is it difference in BMI? Is it economic disparity? Potentially some cultural aspects. And finally, we also have Carl Friston. To me, this is the most exciting lecture. He's the scientific director of University College London's storied functional imaging laboratory. And his impact has been profound on studies looking at how the brain works, with more than 90% of papers which have been published in brain imaging using his methods. You can see in the program there are a few lectures relevant to artificial intelligence which are creeping into the program. So it'll be very interesting to see and hear what he has to say.
I mentioned earlier that you are a trainee rep on the scientific committee, but your involvement doesn't stop at Congress. What made you decide to get involved with ISWOG?
Well, I fell in love with the ethos of ISWOG at my first conference in 2015. There's a strong emphasis on scholarship and the scientific method, which is a wonderful concept that stretches all the way back and even further back than the Enlightenment. There's a culture of education. There's a culture of nurturing young talent and trainees and seeing them come through the program and seeing them develop as the years go on. And again, going back to this concept of cross-fertilization and thinking outside the box, these are things that inspired me and enthused me. So after a while, I thought it would be good to see if I can get involved and try to develop a link between, as I said, between trainees and some of the more senior members of ISWOG. I felt very looked after by some of the people that run ISWOG, and I thought it's a wonderful way of seeing how we can do that for future generations. So I'm very happy to announce this NGen group, and we'll see where that takes us in the future.
Helen, what about you? What was your motivation?
Exactly the same, except my first Congress was 2003 instead of 2015. So, and particularly the cross-fertilization aspect of it. My research is in a basic science area, and so I attend a lot of physics and engineering meetings and even molecular science meetings, and really imaging science, and what ISWOG offers is the perfect combination of all of these. So exactly the same, just a few years earlier, more than a decade.
I feel like a newborn in comparison. My first Congress was only last year, so I feel like I've still got a lot to learn. We're going to move on to some more technical questions. Helen, is there any that you want to address to me?
Well, one thing that I'm thinking about right now is I'm sitting in my morning sipping my coffee, and you are all in your afternoons ready to start your weekend, is what pieces do you have in place for presenting this across different time zones, since it'll be available to everyone in the world? How is that going to work?
So our scientific program, which is online, shows the times according to British Summer Time, as well as other time zones. Now, what's going to be really exciting this year is that we're working to ensure there's a mixture of pre-recorded and live elements, so delegates from all over the world can make the most out of the program and engage with the content. There'll be opportunities for questions and answers with our experts, as well as other opportunities for live interaction. Content, as I mentioned earlier, will also be available on demand for 30 days on the platform. So you can just go in, catch on anything you may have missed, or to rewatch.
So kind of a corollary to that is, what about CME? Will CME be offered as usual?
We are working on this. So we are aiming, like our previous congresses, to have CME credits available, and we're in the midst of discussions with our accreditors about this. You can stay up to date by visiting our website, or if you want, you can also sign up to our newsletter, which has very regular Congress news and updates.
Great.
A question from me, which will be, I think, very kind of more practical question. Is it essential to participate using a computer or laptop? What's the tech side of all this?
So the Virtual Congress platform will be web-based. For optimal experience, we recommend using a laptop or a computer. So usually before our event, we send joining instructions, and we'll be sending out a user guide at a later date to help delegates make the most of the experience.
Fine. And if, obviously, laptops and computers and all that, if there are technical difficulties, what happens?
So as well as our user guide, we'll send instructions to help delegates troubleshoot some technical difficulties they may encounter during the Congress. We'll also have customer support available during our live event, so we'll be there to help to assist you through any problems you may encounter.
I have a question. So we've been talking about what Sardana and I both are very invested in and love about ISWOG, which is all the networking and the ability to interact. And so given the technical challenges and technical differences this year, how will we be able to network as usual? How will that work?
So our ISWOG World Congresses, for anyone who may not know, we have a social program that gives ample opportunities to network and engage with colleagues, meet new people, as well as gets that, that time with more seniors, so you can learn, you can grow. It's also one of my favorite parts of the Congress, the social program, and we're working really hard to build a social program and networking opportunities within the program, within the platform, during the live event. These will be free for all our registered delegates to attend, and again, we'll keep our website updated, so keep checking back to stay up to date. If there's any, do you have any other questions for me, or should we move on to questions from the public?
Let's see what the public has to say.
Okay, great. So we have a question from Abia. Sergio, I'm going to ask this one to you. Are there going to be any courses related to counselling?
To counselling, yes. Well, one of the big themes of this ISWOG is this concept of well-being and burnout, how it impacts us, trainees, and how it impacts, obviously, the trainers. There is evidence that especially trainees in OBGYN, as the Americans call it, or obstetrics and gynecology, are impacted. There is an effect on them. And as a result, we need to see what avenues they can explore. So it is a theme that will be discussed throughout the World Congress. And we're looking to have a special session on this, which will be run by next generation committee members. So please keep an eye out for this as more announcements are made over the next 2 months.
Alexandra has asked if there will be translation available in Spanish. I'm happy to take this one. So I'm very pleased to say that we'll be translating the live content from the scientific program. And the content will be translated in Spanish, French, and Chinese. So yes, it will, Alexandra. Mamta has also sent in a question. Helen, I'm going to send this over to you. How about abnormal placentas? Will this be covered?
Oh, of course, it'll be covered. Both the fundamentals and diagnosis and all kinds of new emerging approaches to diagnosing, management points will be considered. In fact, there's an entire session on this. So absolutely.
Surgeon, Nagween Mohammed has asked about tumors and how this will be covered in our program.
So we have two big areas. One is the use of ultrasound in oncology. We're talking about cervical cancer, endometrial cancer, ovarian cancer. We have world-class speakers, Professor Fotopoulou, who is a gynae oncologist, a world-class surgeon. She'll be presenting and talking. Then we have our ultrasound experts, Professor Testa, Professor Epstein, Professor Bourne, Professor Timmermans, so the IOTA group, the International Ovarian Tumor Analysis Group. And then we have the whole session relevant to ovarian masses. So there will be plenty of lectures as well as masterclasses and workshops relevant to this topic.
Absolutely. And Marlon has asked about registration fees. So I'm just going to jump onto this one. I'll give a quick explanation to our fees. So we have lowered our registration fees by more than 40%, as well as offering discounts to trainees, sonographers, abstract presenters, and delegates from low resource and middle income countries. Our registration, doesn't matter which category you fall into, the registration fee includes access to the full platform, so you'll have access to the exhibition hall, to meet our industry partners, a high quality program, and just a little disclaimer, we will be the only large OBGYN conference taking place this year. You will have access to the platform to watch the content on demand. Once we are accredited, you will have access to, you will receive a CME certificate at the end of the event, so you can claim CME points. You'll get membership, as well as the opportunities to network and the full social program as well. Sadi has asked about fertility being addressed during the Congress. Surgeon, do you want to take this one?
Yes, we have a session with abstracts, like when we spoke about masses and oncology, which will be, we have some invited speakers and the top abstracts in that session. So fertility is definitely covered, no need to worry. We also have one of the things that ISWOG has looked at introducing over the last couple of years is the area or a subset of fertility preservation, but more specifically looking at how fertility preservation interacts with gynecological cancer, so more the surgical side, and obviously how you can use ultrasound to complement surgeons when they perform their fertility sparing surgery. So we'll have a separate workshop relevant to fertility sparing surgery and onco-fertility. So plenty of topics and discussion points at ISWOG relevant to fertility.
Plenty of session types as well, so you have a good variety to like from the masterclasses and the workshops. Yeah,
exactly.
We have a question from Osama, who has asked about content on IUGR and preeclampsia. Helen, are you okay to take this one?
Oh, of course. Stay tuned for that. We have all of the cutting edge research in both of those topics. And as you all know, those both are topics that are relevant to our everyday practice and are on the cutting edge of emerging science. So we have many experts in the workshops and in the master classes coming to speak to us about how to diagnose and approach and manage, how to use different kinds of screening biomarkers to predict. And also we have technical sessions on how to actually do the technical procedures, Dopplers and that to diagnose these conditions. And oh, you'll hear lots and lots about that. We also have many abstracts. Some of our top abstracts address those topics. And so we'll have authors from around the world presenting on their work. Those are two of our most exciting areas.
Great. So that we just checking if you have any other Facebook questions. Just quickly, before as we come to wrapping up, is there any final words you want to say about our Congress and ISWOG? Should we start with Helen? You on the spot.
Everyone come. It's going to be great. And I think that, you know, one of the small funny benefits of this crazy pandemic that we are in this whole world is bringing us together around a common problem that we all have, which is health and women's health. And anyone from any area that's at all interested in that will get something out of this conference. So we will see you in October.
And Surgeon, anything from you?
Helen stole all the good, all the good punchlines. This is the first time we're doing something like this. Don't be disheartened. It's something new. Let's see what it leads to. We're a very close-knit family. It's been a very tough 2020 for a lot of people. This is a chance to bring us all together and to look forward to the future. The most important concept is health, especially women's health. So very much looking forward to October and all that it will bring. Please join us. Thank you.
I'm really hoping that excitement for all three of us came across to everyone today. We are all very, very excited for this year's Congress. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and as well as our speakers for their time. And if you want to know any more about our program, including our masterclasses, you can join us for our next Facebook Live on August the 13th, which will be at 11 a.m. British Summer Time. And also, don't forget, early bird registration deadline is on August the 17th. So try and register before then to make the most out of those reduced fees. Thank you and goodbye.